do with the challenges that we would want to know from the tourism sector. So, Mr. Kawere, if you're to as well help us understand what are some of those challenges that the tourism sector has been facing in recent years or in the last 2 years?
Thank you. What are the challenges? Of course, like I said, the tourism sector is part of the bigger, is part of the ecosystem, the business ecosystem. So some of the challenges affecting the business ecosystem in Uganda also affect the tourism sector. But particularly, we'll pick out those that are actually really pertinent about the tourism sector. And if the tourism sector is to grow, both to attract the domestic traveler and the international traveler, what are those bottlenecks that we still have? One of them is accessibility. Accessibility to the attractions. Yes, there's great improvement as of now, but accessibility looks at roads, road infrastructure. We are looking at air access. Currently, we have fewer aerodromes or airports that are functional for purposes of the tourism. We have been campaigning for opening up of the airport in Kasese to increase international travelers within that region. This has been on the government table for a long time. It has not been attended to, because if you are to compare Uganda to Arusha has international flights. It has international flights. If you want to make Kasese area, Kasese has it is within a proximity of about 4-5 national parks. This is Rwenzori National Park, okay. Queen Elizabeth National Park, there's Chibalo on this other side, there's Semliki. They all have quick access to an international tourist if it dropped into Kasese. Okay. So if we are talking about growth of tourism, and if you want to increase the numbers to 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, some of these things you cannot run away from them.
Okay.
If you could, because if you flew into Arusha, if you flew into the Kilimanjaro airport, you can fly in with a plane of over 300 people, and about 250 embark from there, and basically they have come for tourism. So if we are to grow our tourism, we must also walk that talk and do some of this. So when I'm talking about accessibility, those are some of the bottlenecks we're talking about. Road, air access, especially for our international travelers. It is a bit of a challenge to put somebody on the car from Entebbe Airport and drive him 9 or 10 hours to some of these destinations. So accessibility is very important for us. The other thing is the increasing, one of our biggest challenges has been the promotion of our destination. We are on a positive steps for sure, that is a given. We are not at the same level we were about 5 years ago. We have made very good strides, but we need to do more, because we are at the low end in the region with our brothers. I would call them, not compared to our brothers. If you compare us to Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda, we are still below the requirement in terms of promotion of our destinations, and it's because we have the investment has not been as is required. If, for example, UTB, the promotional agency, is given 25 billion annually, of which it has to pay salaries, rent, and others, then you're left with only about 7 billion for promotion of the country. We need actually to have as much as about 20, 30, 40 billion specifically for marketing the destination. Actually, an average of about 50 billion specifically for promotion of the destination. That is when we can be able, in the 5 years, to look at impact. So marketing and promotion of our destination is still a key challenge, and that is the blood that attracts the traveler. Human capital is still a very big challenge. We need to do a lot of training of our people, both on international standards. Naturally, Ugandans are very happy people, very receptive, but we need to tune that receptiveness and happiness into professional angle. Okay. We have, of course, like I talked about, some of our away from the national parks, some of our historical sites and some of our attractions are still not well developed. We've been talking about government to to phase and take on some of these developments, because it is these sites that will supplement the travel experience. If you went to the source of the Nile right now, you'll find it is not in the state you'll expect it to be. So we have been pushing that there should be heavy investment in some of these attractions to both drive the domestic and international numbers. The budget allocation is still a very huge challenge, because when you read 194 billion, you think it's a big allocation. Yes, thank you. But this allocation is mainly recurrent expenditure. There's very little in terms of capital development for the sector, which is critical. So what we are calling for is that to be able to tackle some of these challenges we have put forward, it is important to reconsider capital expenditure in terms of development of sites, so that we make them, we put them to the standards that will make you, that will increase or improve your experience, so that in the end, you are happy to come back and make reference to other people. At the moment, most of our sites are still in the remote stages. Yes, very beautiful, very good stories, but still require some bit of development. So that's also some of the challenges live around the taxation. The taxation regime keeps on pressing some of not only the tourism sector, but most of the businesses. I think as a country, we need to sit down and review our taxation regime. Is it for the growth of the business sector? Is it for the growth of the tourism sector? Is it that we need to do? The tourism sector needs consistent financing, but the taxation doesn't guarantee some return of investment into the sector. So we have been, as an industry, advocating for the introduction of a tourism fund. Instead of these exorbitant taxes that we pay that do not have a direct impact to the industry, we would rather pay some of these revenues or levies, but some of them are put in the pool like other countries, Kenya, Tanzania, and others. So that specifically when we are talking about capital development, that pool is there to support some of these developments. So we have put up very good suggestions to government, and we believe if we work, we work together. I'm very sure gradually the tourism sector will be the best for everybody.
Okay, now let's look at recovery, the recovery prospect of the tourism sector. As the CEO, Uganda Tourism Association, what do you look at, and if you think this will lead to the recovery, or maybe a step to recovery this financial year?
The recovery process, if the industry is to recover, basically we need visitors, we need business. Okay. That's the only thing that will ensure recovery.
Visitors in the foreign tourists?
No, both domestic and foreign.
Okay.
The foreign tourists, the advantage is the foreign tourists, and I don't want people to say we are only promoting foreign tourists. That is their contribution is quite higher compared to the domestic people per individual. So for us to be able to touch that dollar, we need to have as many foreign tourists as possible. But also, for us to keep the industry going, we need to ensure that every Ugandan participates in this tourism industry. So the recovery process is a double-pronged. Push aggressively the domestic traveler to be able to participate in this tourism economy, and also push the international traveler to bring the foreign exchange that is needed for our economy to grow. The recovery process is, of course, will take a little bit of time, because there are tourists who are still scared of traveling as of now. But there are also those that are adventurous. So what do we need to do is to become sharper, to tap onto that one who is not scared of coming to our destination. So that is for us to get out of, for us to be able to grow this industry, the important person is in making sure we get arrivals. That one has no debate. It is the tourists that bring in the money. How many are we bringing into the country? How many countries have we visited? How many exhibitions have we attended to ensure that we get in? But however, on the recovery process, the government has been a bit positive with the VAT exemptions for the hotels, some bit of recently we have a UDB grant loan, but it is very, very small. The sector is very big. 62 billion for people to borrow to invest is very small. So basically, we also need to find sustainable financing for the people in the sector, so that they can be able to access the required financing, invest in the properties, attractions, and the services, so that when the tourist comes here, because the visitor is the best marketer of our destination, they leave when they are contented. So the recovery process requires that we have a concerted effort with government to find affordable financing. But also, we have had challenges where some of the people who suffered a lot, some of their properties are under threat from banks. But we are happy with that some of the banks have been able to listen to our investors, so that as the business also recovers, they are able also to restructure some of their payments that they can be able to pay. So the recovery process requires that as a country, we have a concerted effort, because the recovery of agriculture, the recovery of other sectors also means the recovery of the tourism sector. Because we want many conferences to come. We want Uganda to bid for as many conferences, so that our hotels can have occupancy. We need the NGOs to have as many workshops as possible, so that the hotels can have occupancy, they can have business. So basically, we need to work around there to see which is to target for 2020, 2022, 2023, so that now we are sure of that occupancy. How much is government spending on, because in the past 2-3 years, government had cut its budget for workshops. And you know, workshops is a lifeblood for most of the hotels. So government has to go back and spend on some of these workshops, because they give business to the hotels. Because once you cut the workshops and trainings and conferences, then you're basically telling the hotels to close. So basically, some of these things are important.
Yes.
We put them together so that they can support the recovery.
Okay. Richard, now, yesterday during the allocation of the national budget, the Minister of Finance allocated 1.449 trillion shillings to promote, not 1.449 rather, it was 1.194.7 billion. Yes, not trillion. Of finance allocated 194.7 billion shillings to the tourism sector. The amount you
expect, because we expect much more. If you look at the national plan,
is it higher than the one you received this financial last financial?
It's actually there's a drop
in the allocations. Okay.
But this is, like I said, 1.947 billion is largely recurrent expenditure. We a budget that also includes some bit of investment into the industry, not recurrent expenditure. Okay. So out of this, if we are to go, how much is going to be invested is less than 10 billion. And we are saying for this destination to be known, it requires close to 50 billion per just marketing alone. Marketing our destination. Because if we are to compare ourselves to others, they are investing as much as $20 million in marketing alone. For us, we cannot even invest $2 million, $3 million. So we are still on the lower side. But we're saying yes, positively. Can we move progressively and move to these targets? It's because it is only when we hit these the source markets with the vibe, we keep ourselves in the face of the consumer and tell them about Uganda, like what other people are doing, that will be able to generate that required number of inflows. But also, we're talking about about investing in to make them appropriate, to make them to improve your experience when you go there, the museum, the Uganda Matters, and all this.
Okay.
So basically, the recovery, the 1.94 is welcome, but it is inadequate.
Okay. Now, lastly, your final remarks as we're ending up with this discussion in regards to the tourism industry.
As we summarize, I would want to invite every Ugandan to plan for your short holiday. Don't wait to be a millionaire to travel. Even with a small budget, you can plan to travel. If you are a group of 10, start now to make a small saving so that you can plan your travel the next time. If all of us did that, we will be able to support our industry domestically. And then for the other people, let us work together to make sure that we positively market our destination to bring in that required revenue that is required for both our economy to grow and actually for both improve our services and yes, grow our destination as one of the best destinations in the world.
Okay. And there you have it. The tourism sector has actually been shaped accordingly, and that is why most probably every other day you would want to challenge yourself. But I don't know whether you've been able to tour any destination in Uganda. If I told you haven't, at least you can put that on your checkbook, your to-do list this year or next year probably, or for the holidays, and try to explore Uganda and see the beauty that we have in the Pearl of Africa. And now that brings us to the end of our topic of discussion. We've been looking at Uganda's tourism industry and majorly looking at boosting it and developing the tourism sector. Well, at this particular moment in time, as we are definitely ending with the topic of discussion. Let's first head into the SMB no comment as we have Honorable Amos Kankunda on his reaction towards the national budget yesterday. So that is pretty much more of what is coming in from there, because like I said, we started off with Honorable Paul Omara from Otuke County, who was as well highlighting and giving his view and opinion or his reaction towards the details of the national budget yesterday. Now, as we were breaking down the tourism sector here, which was severely affected by the COVID-19, I did mention that it was actually allocated 194.7 billion shillings. Now, of which this is to complement the private sector investment and support its recovery, and also it will help in easing access to recovery financing through the Uganda Development Bank, and also intensifying promotion of the domestic tourism. And also they did mention something to do with the facilitation of the Uganda Tourism Board after it rebranded, and it's promoting Uganda under the new Explore Uganda brand, which is to promote not only the tourism sector globally, but also from the domestic perspective. Now, as we switch our eyes to the SMB no comment, the no comment is coming in to address issues to do with matters of the national budget, as the MPs and ministers were reacting towards the national budget which was presented yesterday. The speech of the national budget was highlighting the 48.1 trillion shilling budget for the next financial year 2022 to 2023. And with the SMB comment that we're going to have, we will be having Amos Kankunda and then Honorable Evelyn Anite later on. But first, let's have Honorable Amos Kankunda on his view in regards to the national budget.
Thank you so much, the media. Yes,
thank you very much.
The budget we are reading today, in my opinion, is a good one in the circumstances, because you consider the resource envelope against the allocation or the spending areas. First of all, we know we are recovering as an economy, and we get our revenue from domestic taxes, and our domestic taxes is not performing well because we were under the COVID compression. So doing so, you realize that the revenue that was available, and the fact that we don't want to borrow a lot, external borrowing and domestic borrowing, we had to use a small resource envelope to meet our needs, and particularly addressing security, human social development, agriculture, and those education and health. I think we can pick from there. It is not that good that we would want, but we think, given the circumstances, we can start from that. And at least you saw what we are talking about the bills. How do we therefore generate more revenue domestically using our domestic revenue development strategy, in order to collect more revenue. You realize that we didn't increase tax, and you heard from the address of the minister, we did not increase any tax because we know our local people are coming out of struggle because of the COVID pandemic. But we know that in order to generate more revenue, we need to expand the revenue base by bringing more people into the revenue bracket, into the tax bracket. So we think we are working within the means, and you realize that this budget is also paying 36% of the budget is debt repayment. So we want to avoid going beyond the debt to GDP ratio that you've had, the 49.7, because I know the neighboring countries have already shot over 50%. So for us, we want to avoid, but use.
Is from the Member of Parliament, Rampara County, Honorable Amos Kankunda, on his view in regards to the national budget speech yesterday. Now, Honorable Evelyn Anite, who is the State Minister for Investment, further gave more of her opinion and views on the national budget and the expectations of this next financial year.
First and foremost, and we've been able to address this by investing 1 trillion in the parish development model, and I need to unpack this parish development model for the ordinary person to understand better, because we want to promote agriculture, and this time, unlike the time of NADS, where we will buy the seedlings from the center and take them to the districts and the different parishes and make them to cultivate. This time we're making them to choose their enterprises and then come in those circles and buy all the inputs by themselves and then be able to cultivate or whichever enterprise that they would have chosen so that they are able to do. So that will sustain their lives. Imagine 100 million Ugandan shillings per parish. That's just very excellent. Investment and industrialization. As you know, our projections is that industrialization has contributed to the growth of the economy by 28.6%. And this is not just by any magic. This was because of the work that we have done on the industrialization agenda. We have now established 25 industry parks. We even believe that it's going to be more rapid than it is now. Because we are promoting domestic investment, encouraging Ugandans, instead of doing trade, to go into value addition on all the raw materials that is available in the country, and given a lot of incentives. And that's why we've not introduced any new tax measures. Reason is we want to make value addition on raw materials that are available in the country very, very affordable to Ugandans and their manufacturers. And that is really going to make us to see the challenge of unemployment in the country being addressed. Because if you give incentives, tax incentives to manufacturers and make raw materials available and then access to market, you've addressed that issue, then the only thing, all the enablers for job creation becomes very easy, and therefore we will see the challenge of unemployment.
National budget speech, the SMB, no comment, and Honorable Evelyn Anite mentioning something to do with investment, and she has mentioned that with the parish development model, there is something most probably everyone is paying attention to, but we are forgetting the most influential part of it, which is the fact that with different parishes set to receive a different amount of money, you will definitely be given more of chances that the money will be reaching different destinations. And that is it with the national budget this very year, because next 2 weeks MPs will be visiting their constituencies to see that the national budget reaches, or rather that the parish development model is greatly implemented in their various constituencies. All right, good morning and thank you for that. It is the second hour of the show. Coming up after the break, we're heading into another topic of discussion. Third hour of the show, we are discussing the impact of technology in Uganda, and also what way can we shape up the world of innovation in the country. Good morning.